Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity to come today and share some thoughts with you, both about practicing law and also about being an entrepreneur and having my own law firm and the experience that I have had in working with other entrepreneurs. That's one of the things I've enjoyed about my practice of law, is that I have worked with a myriad of entrepreneurs in all kinds of disciplines across Las Vegas and in Utah, and I've had the opportunity to watch those businesses grow. I've had the opportunity to see those businesses have challenges, the opportunity to see business owners make bad decisions and sometimes make good decisions. So practicing law in the business arena gives me that opportunity, gives any attorney the opportunity to experience entrepreneurship as somewhat of an outsider, but also to be involved and revel sometimes in those successes. Just by way of background, you heard a little bit about that, but I was born and raised in Cedar City. I was actually raised until I was 12 years old, just right down below on 700 West. Spent all of my formative years on this campus. It looked substantially different then. The big staircase that comes off the hill here, that I maintain was the result of us riding our skateboards, because you could get flying up there by the old library and come down that lawn. And eventually we wore such a path in the lawn that I think they just gave up and said, we're going to put a staircase in there. My family moved at that point over onto 200 West, where my mother still lives to this day. I started SUSC in the fall of 1986. And I believe it changed to SUU January 1 of 2001. Or I'm sorry, 1991. Yeah, I'm dating myself. So I ended up graduating from SUU in the spring of 1992, and then went to law school at Brigham Young University. And I think you heard from one of my classmates, Dennis Sponer, a few months ago. Dennis was here at SUU with me. Then he went to Brigham Young University with me. And ultimately, we both ended up down in Las Vegas. Him back in Las Vegas, and me down in Las Vegas. But and there was a third student here, Sean Marchant, who's a tax attorney that had also graduated at the same time, went to BYU. So we were the three representatives of SUU in that class up at Brigham Young University. So while I was at Brigham Young University, I had opportunities to do some clerkships, which really became formative to my career. And I can look back even today and say, well, those clerkships, those early opportunities were what really led me to be where I am today. And if I could instill one thing with you today, that would be, take those early opportunities. Don't discount options or opportunities that come your way because you think, hey, this isn't exactly what I want to be doing this month or this semester or even this year. Try to be a little bit more forward-thinking than that, and realize that when opportunities come, they will ultimately lead to other opportunities and maybe some things that you do want to be doing. So my first year in law school, I was able to clerk for a gentleman in Las Vegas who it didn't end up being a job for me. It was poor pay. It was what I was able to get. But it exposed me, to one of my best friends. It was his partner, and I have become lifetime friends. And that little clerkship has led over the years to literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue being generated because I met those two attorneys. So I didn't end up ever working for either of them, but I took that opportunity and built on that. My second year of law school, I was fortunate enough to get a clerkship for a small law practice in Provo, Ivy and Young. One of the things they did was they did defense work for State Farm. And that summer, the summer of my second year, I noticed and was able to apply to a firm in Las Vegas that also did State Farm insurance defense type work. And I was able to parlay my experience at Ivy and Young into being able to land that clerkship for my second summer down in Las Vegas. And I ultimately went back to work at that firm in the spring of 1995 after I graduated. So Those opportunities have all built one upon the other, and ultimately I was exposed to a senior partner at that law firm who I give full credit for a lot of my success to. He's a brilliant man. He was a great attorney. He was a solid businessman, and I've patterned a lot of what I have done in my career on what he taught me. So that's the other thing I would instill to you is look for good mentors. When you have those opportunities to be exposed to people who can be mentors in your field, whether it be entrepreneurship or law or dentistry or whatever it is you're doing, look for good mentors that you can pattern your business after and learn from. And don't discount opportunities to have a mentor. So my current partner actually started practicing at that firm the same day I did in 1995. So she and I have been together now for going on, I guess it is 22 years all of a sudden. We left there in February of 2002. We're able to take some substantial clients that we had built up while we were at that firm, and we started the firm of Dennett in February of 2002 with very little capital. I think we might have had $25,000 between us that we started the law firm with. We were able to rent a couple of offices, sublease a couple of offices from a guy. We cajoled one of the secretaries to come with us to kind of be our office staff, and that was kind of our inauspicious beginning. We were prepared to go 4 or 5 months without pay. Ultimately, we didn't have to do that. We didn't have to go that long. We had a couple of good early successes, and were able to get the firm up and off the ground. So we are, by Las Vegas standards now, a medium-sized law firm. There are larger, and there are many smaller than us, but that start in 2002 has continued on, and we've been very fortunate in having good success in the legal market in Las Vegas. So sometimes I think when you think of entrepreneurship and professional services, whether that be medicine or dentistry or engineering or law, I think it's easy to think, well, I don't need any entrepreneurial skills because I'm going to be this professional. I'm going to be a dentist. I'm going to be a lawyer. The clients will come in. The business will take care of itself. Nothing could be further from the truth. And as I mentioned early on, there are ample examples in my career of professionals, other professionals who I have assisted with, making poor decisions that have cost them businesses, have cost them firms, have cost them money and employees and partnerships, all because they didn't feel like they needed to have that entrepreneurial attitude and make those good decisions. So if you are inclined to go into one of the professional services, don't discount what you can learn in the School of Business or what you could learn from mentors in the business arena, because they are of pivotal importance. I have had opportunities to represent professionals, many dentists, many doctors, and I wouldn't say universally, but I think those types of professionals are traditionally, and I don't want to paint them with a broad brush, but they tend to not be the best business people, and they tend to make bad decisions. So the really successful ones, the ones that grow their practices, the ones who are successful and able to hire other professionals and grow their businesses, are the ones that act like business people in addition to those professional services. So don't think just because I'm going to have a professional degree that my business is going to take care of itself. It won't. I've enjoyed practicing law because of the variety of opportunities that it gives me to participate in a wide range of disciplines. As indicated in my bio, I have experience in construction. My family is in construction. My in-laws own a large construction company in Las Vegas. So I have had the opportunity to get to know a lot about construction in representing construction companies. I've learned a lot about the engineering field. I represent a large engineering firm in Las Vegas, and I've learned about that. As I indicated, I've represented doctors and dentists and learned about their businesses. I've also had the opportunity to learn some medicine because I've tried dozens and dozens of cases involving spinal injuries or knee injuries or other type of medical malpractice cases that has required me to get at least a working knowledge of some sort of area of practice of medicine. And taking the deposition of doctors, you have to be able to speak at least rudimentarily about medical issues. So I have appreciated that and my opportunities to learn those types of things. Incidentally, if anybody has any questions, I don't intend to raise your hand. I don't intend to just lecture.
So, back to the representing business professionals, stuff like that. Is there areas that, hindsight being 2020, that you see, especially with those guys that you would have focused in your undergraduate degrees or even master's degree programs on business classes? What do you see most difficult in accounting, like marketing?
Accounting is a huge one. Human resources, asset management. I think it's easy for somebody that's bringing in large sums of money that hasn't seen that before to get really crazy with what they're buying. I watched dentists drop $150,000 on new X-ray machines. They're a year out of school, and they're doing a $250,000 tenant improvement on their space, and I'm just putting pencil to paper, and I'm thinking there is just no way they can manage that kind of debt load. So yeah, I see a lot of that, a lot of those types of decisions that have upended a lot of practices. So, and typically people in the medical field haven't spent a lot of time in business classes, so they don't get enough training for that. So I have friends that are dentists that are very, very successful, and some of them utilize practice management personnel. So that's not a bad idea. If you don't have the skill set to at least initially manage your practice, I think it's smart to employ somebody to assist with that.
I've got a question. In the legal field today, how is your business changing with technology? We're hearing a lot about artificial intelligence, and you've obviously got tools like Westlaw and and other things which you're utilizing. How's that adjusting or shifting how the legal system works, and how your operation or attorneys that you see, how's it affecting them, and what are you doing as far as strategically positioning yourself to utilize these technologies or at least ameliorate the impact of them?
Yeah, and that's a great question, and it's both good and bad. The technology for us has been both good and bad. When I went to law school, I don't know how many people have researched in the actual law library where you go and look up a book and you pull the Pacific Reporter off the shelf and you read it, and then you Shepherdize it. You go to another book, you pull a Shepard's book out, you make sure it's still good law, and then you go and get another Shepard's, and down and down and down and down. You narrow down on that, and you get one that's about 2 days old, and you're okay, as of 2 days ago, according to these books, that's still good law. Now that whole process, that used to take a couple of hours, can be done in a matter of 2 seconds with Westlaw and other research type software. So that has revolutionized legal research. What that's done though from a revenue standpoint for us is it's caused particularly our institutional clients to be very critical of our billing. So if one of my associates puts research in a billing entry for a client, that's going to get kicked back to me every time, because they don't think we need to spend any time researching. So that is a bit of a pitfall, and that's something that we have scrambled to try to stay ahead of and find other opportunities to make revenue, because the research type of revenue is not coming our way. All institutional clients have in the last 2 or 3 years gone to audited billing systems, and this is really the bane of everyone's every attorney I know's existence right now. There are companies that audit bills, and so when we submit a monthly bill on a matter, that bill is run through a piece of technology. It picks up any key phrases in the billing description that company may not want to pay for, review, prepare for and attend. Things like that are just immediately red flagged. And then we get the bill back with a bunch of exceptions, and then we have to go back and appeal those or support that we really should have billed those type of services and that was an appropriate bill. So that is, the technology has changed in the legal community and over the last decade. We no longer have clerk's offices in our courthouses in Las Vegas, and I don't think there's one here either. So it used to be that we would prepare pleadings, we would send a runner, the runner would deliver the copies all over town to the other lawyers in the case, and then they would take a final copy down, have a file stamped by the clerk, that paper copy would be kept by the clerk's office. That's all gone. Now it's all done online, all of the service is done online, and at our office, though we keep paper, at least for a while, everything that comes into our office is scanned in. So we are I don't say we're paperless because we keep paper when it comes in. But we no longer employ teams of file clerks because we simply just don't need them. It's all done electronically. So yeah, technology in the legal field has just gone absolutely crazy in the last 10 years.
So to kind of continue in that frame, I'm the legal studies director and pre-law officer here, and I know a big topic is e-discovery. Mm-hmm. Opportunities for employment in law firms, not necessarily as lawyers, but just wondering if you could talk a little bit about e-discovery and how that impacts your...
Yeah, and that's a good question for this group, because for business owners, the maintenance of records is of extreme importance. The quickest way, if you're a business owner and you get sued, you're in a lawsuit, the quickest way for that lawsuit to go south against you is for you to not be able to produce documents. And there used to be some ability to say, well, that wasn't our document retention policy, and we threw those away, or they got lost, it was under the secretary's desk. And judges, sometimes you could sell that to a judge. Now, with e-discovery, with electronic documentation, those excuses no longer exist. So if you're a business owner, you need to make very certain that you have an ability to maintain electronically all of your business records and an ability to produce those in a lawsuit. Because if you don't, the judge is going to enter an order for spoliation of evidence, and he's going to instruct a jury ultimately at a trial that they have to find against you for liability, and then the only question will be how much the damages are. So carrying that a little bit further, social media is a new area of discovery in the legal markets that we knew nothing about 10 years ago. But now, first thing we do when we get a case in, if we're defending it, is we hop on Facebook. I put somebody on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. We try to find these people. And it's crazy sometimes what people have on their social media accounts that it's absolutely contrary to what they're suing about. And so that type of discovery is particularized. Sometimes it's difficult to do, sometimes it's difficult to find that, and lots of times you need somebody with some computer savvy to dig that up. But yeah, the e-discovery, the electronic information that can be discovered is pivotally important. And it is an emerging area for somebody that's good at that to have opportunities at a law firm to do that type of discovery. So we see a lot of that. I've just got some notes here that I wanted, and I said in here, don't miss an opportunity to create a relationship. One of the reasons I've been successful in having a wide base of clientele is because I have seized on any opportunity I could have to create relationships. And it doesn't matter whether that's in civic organizations, whether it's some sports league you play in, whether it's with your church, whether it's the opportunity to serve on a board. those opportunities will lead to relationships, and relationships lead to business, they lead to clients, they lead to other opportunities. So don't miss an opportunity, and don't ever discount somebody, because I've done this before. Man, that person, I can't see in a million years how that person could ever assist in my business. How's that contact ever going to be worth anything to me? And then later on you find out, well, actually, they are important. They did have contacts. They are some avenue for business. So don't miss an opportunity to create relationships. Relationships are of paramount importance. My oldest daughter is a senior at the Marriott School of Management at BYU, and she was looking for an internship this summer, and she just yesterday actually got hired by the Park Theater at the Monte Carlo, and that all came through a contact, our family's contact, that she was able to utilize and parlay and work that angle and different angles, groups she had been in high school, to give her that opportunity. And I don't know that that opportunity would have been there but for those relationships. So don't miss an opportunity to create relationships. I can't stress that enough. That is the key, in my opinion, to marketing business, is to have those relationships. I also wrote down, embrace diversity in your business. Diversity, when you are marketing a business to a potential client or a customer, diversity sometimes can be the thing that will drive those customers or clients to your business. One of the reasons I think our business has been quite successful is that my partner is a lady. And when we started, there weren't as many women in the litigation field as there are now. Thank goodness there are more now, but we were a bit unique when we first started because I was able to take her somewhere, and lots of our clients were managers of insurance companies or businesses that were women, and there was just a better connection there. So we have strived to have both racial diversity and gender diversity in our business, and I think that's extremely important because it allows you to reach out to and relate to a wide variety of people. I also wrote down here that, because one of the things they asked me to talk about was something I wished I had done better earlier. And I would say I wish I had had a more focused marketing plan early on in my business. It's easy to get complacent and say, the work's coming in or the business is coming in, I don't need to market, I don't need to focus on that. I'm comfortable where I'm at. And if I was going to change something about what I've done over the last 22 years, I would have been, and I have been very focused on marketing, but not as structured and not as intense as I could have been early on in my career. So never discount the need for marketing your business, even if your business is going well, because things change, clients go away, customers go away, competitors come in, and if you're not ahead of that, if you're not marketing all the time, you'll find yourself out in the cold with no customers or fewer customers, and something you could have anticipated 2 years ago and avoided, you've now not avoided because you got complacent. So, any other questions? Yeah.
How would you suggest in an industry like construction, if a portion of construction is not user-friendly, like you're not going to go ask a private customer to buy a road? How would you suggest going about doing a marketing scheme for something like that?
Well, and a lot of your customers there are going to be municipalities or state governments and things. I think that gets back to a lot to your relationships. And I think in the construction industry that I'm familiar with, I watch Las Vegas Paving. I don't think there's, right now, I don't know that there's a bigger company in the world than Las Vegas Paving. They are everywhere. I don't know what that company's worth, but I've never represented them, but I've represented many, many subcontractors that deal with Las Vegas Paving, and those subcontractors are successful because they have those relationships, and they don't have them necessarily with state and governmental entities. They have them with Las Vegas Paving, so they start as subcontractors, and I think it's easily marketable, but there are trade organizations. If I was trying to do that, I would get involved in the trade organizations. I would go to conventions and shows. I would get to know suppliers, vendors, equipment suppliers, because those are all avenues to bigger employers or bigger customers, like the Las Vegas paving model I talked about. That's kind of, no, you know.
I wanted to ask about your arbitration.
Okay.
Just dealing with parties that are already hostile.
Mm-hmm.
You as the centerpiece and I guess leader of those conversations. Then you talk about a lot about relationships and things like that. Do you get brought in just as, this guy arbitrated this divorce or this business breakup or whatever? He's good. Is that just kind of like a word of mouth thing?
Yeah. Two things there. In Clark County, Nevada, and in most of the bigger municipalities, urban areas across the country, there is mandatory arbitration of certain types of cases. So I am an arbitrator in the court-annexed arbitration program. They tend to be smaller cases. Well, in fact, they are. The value of the case can't exceed $50,000, and if one of the parties thinks that it does, they can seek an exemption from the arbitration program. So they tend to be smaller cases. Those are appointed through, there's an arbitration commissioner, it's like a judge, and you get appointed. I mean, the parties can both strike one of the names on a list, and whoever's of the names left, the commissioner will appoint somebody. So that really isn't word of mouth. The other thing you're talking about, more private binding, it's usually private binding arbitration, where two parties are in a dispute, they realize that court costs and the delay of court and the certainty of an appeal and the uncertainty of an outcome will lead a lot of parties to one form of alternative dispute resolution or another, either arbitration or mediation. And in those scenarios, yeah, you're typically approached by them, say, hey, I've agreed with this other attorney to have you arbitrate the case. And then typically the arbitrator would take over, has all the powers of a judge to control discovery, to control the hearing, to control the witnesses. And then the arbitration hearing takes place, and then the arbitrator issues a written finding. Now that's different than mediation, which is what you were talking about, which all of that I do is word of mouth. It's people that know that I have experience in a particular area, and they will come to parties and say, hey, for the same reasons, uncertainty of an outcome, certainty that there's going to be an appeal, extreme legal costs to go to trial. So they will decide that they're going to go to mediation. And as business owners, you'll probably have opportunities to go to mediation to try to settle matters. And typically it's a better avenue, a better forum to try to get things resolved. But in that scenario, neither side is bound to anything. And typically the way we'll do that is we put one party in a room and the other party in another room, and then the mediator will just work back and forth. And really your role as a mediator in that case is to tell both sides how terrible their case is. And so I always tell parties, if you both leave a bit dissatisfied, it's a good settlement. If one of you leaves and you're happy about it, then I haven't done my job. You both need to not like me very much and be a little bit unhappy when you leave, and then that was a good settlement. So that is an emerging area of law. There's lots of attorneys late in their careers that try to get into mediations and arbitrations, and there's some international organizations or companies. There's a big one in Las Vegas called JAMS, J-A-M-S, that has mediators all over the country, and several others. But mediators in Las Vegas, the good mediators are making about $500 an hour right now. So I mean, it's an expensive process to go through, but when you're looking at $150,000 to $200,000 to try the case, you can throw $4,000 or $5,000 at a mediator pretty reasonably to try to get a case done. So mediation and arbitration is. You mentioned in the bio that I was a member of the American Board of Trial Attorneys, ABOTA, and it's an international organization of trial attorneys. You have to have a certain number of jury trials to verdict in order to even apply to be a member. But one of their big issues is that there's too much mediation. They feel like that the art of trying a case is being lost. That young lawyers aren't having opportunities to try cases, and so one of the things they're focused on is the art of trying a case and trying to get more cases to trial. So 98% of the civil cases filed at least in Clark County, Nevada, don't go to trial. So it's actually less than 2% ever see a courtroom, ever go to trial. So The other 98% they either get arbitrated to a decision, they get mediated, or more commonly, the attorneys can get together and resolve them. So just because you get involved in a lawsuit as a business owner doesn't mean you're going to end up in trial. The lawyer's job is to prepare the case for trial, and in the process of preparing the case for trial, hopefully can get the case to a point where both sides can come together and say, this needs to be resolved. So
what's the impact of that on case law, which you can't produce case laws?
Correct. Yeah, there are some reporters out there who will talk about arbitration decisions and things, but absolutely not binding. I think there's still enough cases being tried that there's still a plethora of case law we don't have any in Nevada because we've historically been such a small jurisdiction. That's kind of the ongoing joke in Nevada. Well, I couldn't find a Nevada case on point. Well, yeah, because you can't find a Nevada case on anything. It's getting better as the state grows. But and we in Nevada have not had an appellate court until 2 years ago. We just had a Supreme Court. So every case that went to verdict that somebody wasn't happy with, they appealed it to the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court couldn't get to it or wouldn't hear it, it just sat. So now we have an appellate court that's making a little bit more law for us. So, but I don't know that it's been a big impact on judicial precedent.
Going back to your marketing comments, LegalZoom and Watson and a bunch of other technologies are out there. Are they impacting you at all, or making you change your market or your specialty, or is there any adjustments being made?
I haven't seen that really affect. I don't do a lot of, when you start talking about LegalZoom, you're talking about, do-it-yourself will, or maybe a rudimentary trust, probably a settlement agreement. I haven't seen that affect people, friends of mine who do transactional work. I haven't had anybody really say, hey, this thing is killing me. I candidly don't know how they get away with it because it's essentially, in my mind, practicing law without a license. But they've gotten away with it. But I haven't seen that really affect the market too much.
Can you talk more about the medical experiences that you had and the problems that you've seen?
Yeah. So a lot of my firm does. All of the attorneys in the firm except me do almost exclusively insurance defense work. So, and it's typically large loss type cases. So a lot of spinal injury cases, a lot of wrongful death or catastrophic injury, brain damage cases. So they are heavily involved with doctors and expert opinions. Experts drive the legal process. And in a medical case, those experts are always doctors. In Las Vegas, there are, and you can look this up on, you can Google this and see the problems we've had in Las Vegas with doctors being too involved in the legal process. In fact, we've had 4 or 5 doctors lose their licenses over the last 7 or 8 years for giving perjured testimony. And there's a huge incentive because, a doctor, I use a doctor out of Phoenix occasionally, and if he comes up, he's an orthopedic surgeon. If he comes up to Las Vegas to testify, he charges me $15,000 for his fee plus his costs, and he flies first class and stays in one of the gigantic casinos downtown, and I pay all of that. So it's a $20,000 incentive for him to make me happy. So that's a bit of the fallacy, but as part of that, to talk to one of those doctors, when I go and take the other party's expert's deposition, I have to be able to talk about foraminal stenosis and the degeneration of the spine and whether or not that fusion surgery was correct, or what was the pre-existing condition of the spine before that. So very heavily involved in the medicine, and I enjoy that. It's hard to get a doctor to tell you what you want to hear, but you spend a lot of time talking to them. So expert witnesses, many of you will have opportunities. You'll have expertise at some point in your life where you would probably be appropriate to be an expert witness. I use a lot of accident reconstruction experts. I use a lot of engineering experts. I've done a lot of product defect suits over the years, and there's a lot of engineering firms out across the country, in Las Vegas included, who provide engineering services on product failure. I've done several heavy equipment failure cases that ended up in fatalities, and I've had to hire experts on that. So if you have those opportunities, it's something you should look at as an adjunct to even owning a business. So if you have some of those particularized skills, it's a great avenue to supplement your income, or even have there are people who do nothing but expert witness services. So it's an area to consider and keep in mind. Anything else?
I'm curious, you talked a lot up front of that you see a lot of very poor decisions that negatively impact businesses and a few good decisions, some of those being record keeping. Could you go into some more depth on what you notice and maybe some things that as potential business owners in the future we could be mindful of and prepare?
Yeah, one that sticks out to me, I represent an engineering firm, and the founding member of that firm is a nice guy. He, early on in his career, gave partnerships to some of his employees and then continued to give them more and more partnership. Well, by the time the company was worth $10 or $15 million, these free ownership pieces that he gave to these partners without partnership agreements or without clear partnership agreements got to be a huge problem for him. So we've litigated I don't know how many partnership disputes because of that. And one of the things he did early on, which I would advise against both because of my own self-interest and just because it's good advice, is he'd always try to save money on an attorney. So he never hired any of his documents done. He'd find something on the internet, he'd put it together, and then we'd have a buy-sell agreement with no date of the buy-sell, no date that was supposed to be that the interests were supposed to be valued. Just some really rudimentary mistakes that individual made early on. So attorneys are expensive, but they're more expensive at the back end than at the front. So I would advise, if you're going to do things like that, to get some legal advice. And those are problems he could have avoided. He could have still given those ownership interests to these people to keep them around, and you have to do that sometimes to keep good people in your firm, but he didn't structure it correctly. So that's one thing I would point out.
With regard to professional services practices, be they lawyers, dentists, whatever, do you have a particular type of business organization that you think is better for that type of firm?
Well, it depends, I guess, on how many members are involved, but typically I like to see, in a professional services, I like to see the partners all have their own LLC. So my firm's organization is I have my own LLC, Ryan L. Dennett, PC, and my original partner, Gina Winspear, has her own PC. Those two PCs actually own own the LLC or the LLP, which is Dennett Winspear, the firm. So we don't own individually any part of our firm. Our PCs, our professional corporations actually own the firm, and it gives us both tax advantages and it gives us some insulation from liability. Although in professional services, the insulation from liability is it's more perceived than real, because if you get sued for malpractice, everybody's getting sued. All of the individuals, all of the corporations, all of the PCs. So, but I like that as an organization. It gives those benefits. Anything else? Is there people in here that are thinking of going to law school, or just 1, 2, 3? Is that, are you business majors and going to law school, or what are your major? Who raised their hand? What's your major? That's a good major.
My major is criminal justice.
Okay. So do you want to do criminal law, potentially?
I'm not sure which one I want to do, but I've been thinking a little bit about it. I just don't know what to expect if I want to go to law school.
Okay.
What would you advise on?
As an undergrad, I majored in political science, and is Craig Jones still around? He's retired, certainly, hasn't he? Craig's got to have retired. I majored in political science, and I loved it. I did 6 months in Washington, D.C., working for the congressman over this district in 1990. It was a great experience and everything. But I think there are probably majors that would serve you better in law school. And they would include business, economics, English, believe it or not, is a great major for law school. But political science has served me fine. My partner went to Ivy League school. She went to Wellesley, was a political science major. So we're both political science majors, and we've done all right with that. But there are some better majors, I think, as undergrads. That one might give you a better background for law school, and two, other opportunities if you decide later not to go to law school. So that's kind of my spiel on that.
Something I've been considering in my degree path that kind of came to light to me semester two is a technical writing certificate while getting my undergrad. Proofreading, professional writing, stuff like that. I hear stuff like the technology, and you kind of wonder if that's even a thing, why, if that's worthwhile to pursue. But going forward, is that something that you still see value in as a business owner? Or?
Yeah, well, any writing experience that you can get, I think clearly it's going to help you in law school, but it's going to help you in any business. I am shocked with the number of people that I hire some of them that still work for me today. One of my best lawyers, I don't like how she writes. I don't think she writes very well. She's a great lawyer. She does not write very well. And I think that is a bigger and bigger problem, and I think technology isn't helping us out there because it's so easy to be lazy and turn something out that looks okay, but the craft of writing, I think, is being lost a little bit. So if you can focus on that, particularly in the law, and by the same token, the newest partner we made in the firm, he's probably one of the best writers. He might be the best writer I've ever worked with. And the difference between what he writes and what she writes is just night and day. And it's so much more effective and easier to read and better for the client. So if I could lead you somewhere with that, even if you're not getting an English degree, spend some time in. There's a business English class I know that I took, and business report writing. Those types of classes are important.
I have to put in a little word for there. We have a legal studies program here that has a legal research and writing course too that is helpful.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. When I went to law school, we were required to go up a week before the 1L students went up a week before and did a week of legal research, and I'm telling you what, it was like being thrown in the deep end of the pool because I did not know what was going on, and I kind of thought I knew a little bit about the law, but I felt like I'd been thrown in the deep end of the pool. So anything you can do and legal research is different today than it was, but there's still a vast amount of skill that's needed to do that, and particularly to then write it persuasively. I think so often when we write, particularly in university settings, we're not writing critically enough. We're not learning to analyze issues and try to persuade through our writing. We're writing to be even-handed or talk about both sides. So some of that, a class like that where you have to actually be persuasive and critical, I think would be extremely helpful in the legal field. Any other questions? Questions generally about...
Did you have like a certain event in your life that made you want to eventually head into law?
I mean, when I started here in 1986, I thought I was going to go to medical school. All my friends are doctors or dentists, and I thought I was going to be one of those too. And then I actually did. I had exposure. I served a mission for my church, and I had exposure to a gentleman there who was an attorney in Las Vegas who I really respected, and it got me thinking that maybe I want to go to law school. And when I came back, then I was really interested in politics. I did a semester with Jim Hansen in Washington D.C. and all of those things. You can't everybody's a lawyer in D.C. So I had that experience, and it kind of led me that way. And my son, incidentally, who's a math major at the U, people ask him, "Are you going to go to law school?" He says, "No." "Why is that?" "My dad hates it." I says, "Well, back up." I don't hate it. I really actually kind of enjoy it. But it is a stressful way to make a living sometimes. It is a stressful way to make a living. My best friend's an orthodontist, and I always tell him, I quip at him that, "Did you wake up at 3 in the morning worried that you weren't going to get that kid's tooth to move?" No, you don't care. You'll get it moved eventually. But I wake up frequently at 3 in the morning and think, oh man, I might have blown that, or I should have done this. So it can be stressful. So if you're going to go into law, you've got to figure out how to manage your time and decide what area of law you can go into that you can still have some quality of life. Is Mike Carter still here, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike had a pre-law class when I was here, and I don't even know what movie it was, but he came to class one day and he says, I was watching a movie last night, and it was there was a scene where this attorney was quitting his job, and he went into the partner and said, hey, I'm quitting my job, going somewhere else, and the response of the partner was, oh, I didn't think you'd ever go quality of life on me. So, so that is a challenge. It's better than it used to be. Technology has helped. It's better than it used to be, but it can still be stressful, and it can consume you if you don't learn how to control your time. Did you have a question?
Yeah. At your stage, do you still bill hourly with your time?
Yeah, that's a good question too.
And maybe on that same note, it's kind of unique. If you go to other business settings, you generally wouldn't find an upper level manager billing by hour. In your experience, salary versus hourly, as you move up the chain, what are the benefits and the downsides of that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way in a litigation setting, really the primary way you can account for your services is to bill by the hour. That being said, there's a huge wave going for flat fee. There's a wave for flat fee. I come in with this, or I'm going to bill you $5,000 from now through the end of discovery. And then nobody has to keep track of time. Criminal cases, some of you said they might go into criminal law, those are all flat fee. So, but less and less I find myself spending more time managing and less time working, which is frustrating. And it's hard to account for your time. And that's, again, the only way we get paid. So I don't get paid when I'm talking to an associate about a case, or when I'm worried about the lease, or trying to get a new sign out front, or buying new computers. So time management is a big deal because that's the only way you get paid.
So you don't draw a salary from your practice?
No, I do draw a salary. So the hourly is billed through the law firm, and then actually we just take a draw to our PCs, and then my salary actually comes from my PC. So yeah, we take a monthly draw. So.
Okay, well, we've come to the end of class, so let's give a round of applause to our speakers.
Thank you.